UEFA Champions League semi-final second leg between Chelsea and Barcelona was never supposed to become legend. It was supposed to be a tactical battle. It was supposed to be Guardiola's rising dynasty versus Hiddink's temporary rescue mission. But instead, it became 90 minutes that changed how millions of fans viewed referees, justice, heartbreak, and destiny. To understand why that night exploded into one of football's most controversial matches, you have to rewind to the beginning of that season. Barcelona in 2008/2009 were not just good, they were revolutionary. Pep Guardiola had taken over the club in the summer of 2008 after replacing Frank Rijkaard, and many doubted him because he had only coached Barcelona B. But Guardiola walked into the dressing room and made one decision that would define his legacy. He built the team around Lionel Messi. Messi was only 21 years old at the time, but Guardiola moved him into a free-roaming, attacking role that would soon terrorize European football. Barcelona played football that looked like poetry written with a ball. Xavi controlled tempo like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Andrés Iniesta floated between midfield and attack like a ghost defenders could not touch. Samuel Eto'o provided lethal finishing. Thierry Henry added experience and pace on the wing. Daniel Alves bombed forward like a second winger. Carles Puyol led the defense with warrior energy. Barcelona weren't just winning matches, they were suffocating opponents with possession. They won La Liga that season with 87 points. They scored 105 league goals. They were chasing a historic treble. But standing in their way was a Chelsea side built completely differently. Chelsea in 2008/2009 were a wounded giant trying to heal after the trauma of losing the 2008 Champions League final to Manchester United on penalties. That final still haunted the squad. John Terry slipping in Moscow still echoed in the minds of fans. Chelsea had started the 2008/2009 season under Luis Felipe Scolari, but result collapsed by February 2009. The club turned to Gus Hiddink as an interim manager. Hiddink was calm, experienced, respected, and he immediately stabilized the team. Chelsea were built on strength, discipline, and emotional resilience. Petr Cech guarded the goal like a fortress. John Terry and Alex provided raw defensive aggression. Ashley Cole was arguably the best defensive left-back in the world at that time. Frank Lampard was the engine. Michael Ballack was leadership and power. Didier Drogba was fear personified. Chelsea weren't artists like Barcelona. Chelsea were warriors. The first leg of the semi-final took place at Camp Nou on April 28, 2009. Barcelona dominated possession as expected. They controlled 66% of the ball. They attempted over 20 shots. But Chelsea executed a defensive masterclass. Hiddink instructed his team to stay compact, absorb pressure, and strike on counters. The match ended 0-0, and suddenly, the tie became perfectly balanced. Chelsea returned to Stamford Bridge with confidence, because they believed that if they could score first at home, they could eliminate the best attacking team in the world. May 6, 2009. Stamford Bridge was electric. Rain drizzled across West London, adding tension to the atmosphere. The stadium pulsed with belief and anxiety. The referee for the night was Norwegian official Tom Henning Ovribo. His name would soon become one of the most controversial names in football history. From the opening whistle, Chelsea played with intensity that shocked Barcelona. They pressed higher than expected. They tackled harder. They refused to allow Barcelona rhythm. And then, in the 9th minute, Stamford Bridge exploded. The ball fell loose outside Barcelona's penalty area. Michael Essien adjusted his body in one smooth motion, and he struck a volley that bent through the air like a missile. The ball smashed off the underside of the crossbar and into the net. Victor Valdez never moved. Chelsea led 1-0. The crowd roared like thunder rolling across London. Essien sprinted toward the corner flag, screaming with pure adrenaline. Chelsea were now leading the tie. Barcelona were stunned. For the next 30 minutes, Chelsea played the perfect knockout football. They closed passing lanes. They tackled aggressively. They denied Messi space. And frustration began to creep into Barcelona's rhythm. Then came the first moment that would ignite controversy. Around the 23rd minute, Florent Maluda burst into Barcelona's penalty area after cutting inside Dani Alves. Contact occurred. Maluda went down. Chelsea players screamed for a penalty. The referee waved play on. Replays showed the initial contact started outside the box, but continued inside. Confusion spread across the stadium. Chelsea fans were furious, but the game continued. Barcelona tried to respond. Messi dropped deeper searching for the ball. Xavi attempted to dictate tempo. Iniesta tried to glide between Chelsea's midfield lines, but Chelsea's physical presence suffocated them. Ashley Cole produced one of the greatest defensive performances ever seen against Lionel Messi. He shadowed Messi everywhere. He timed tackles perfectly. He denied Messi the freedom he usually enjoyed. By halftime, Barcelona had managed only a few clear chances. Chelsea walked into the tunnel leading 1-0, 45 minutes away from the Champions League final. And emotionally, Stamford Bridge believed destiny was finally on their side. But football rarely respects emotional certainty. The second half began with Barcelona increasing urgency. Pep Guardiola stood on the touchline shouting instructions, waving his arms, demanding faster passing. Barcelona pushed forward, committing more bodies into attack, and Chelsea prepared to counterattack. Then, in the 56th minute, chaos struck Barcelona. Eric Abidal chased Nicolas Anelka near the halfway line. Anelka went down after shoulder contact. Referee Ovribo reached for his pocket, and he pulled out a red card. Abidal was sent off. Barcelona were down to 10 men. Guardiola stood frozen. Barcelona now needed to defend, attack, and survive with one player less. Chelsea smelled blood. They pushed forward looking for the second goal that would kill the tie. Then came the moment that would forever fuel conspiracy debates. Around the 62nd minute, Drogba cut inside the penalty box and fired a shot that struck Gerard Piqué's arm. Chelsea players screamed again. Fans erupted. Television replays showed the ball hitting Piqué's arm, but the referee again waved play on. The atmosphere inside Stamford Bridge shifted from tension to boiling anger. Chelsea continued attacking. Ballack dominated midfield duels. Lampard surged forward with late runs. Drogba bullied Barcelona defenders. Then came another incident. In the 66th minute, Maluda crossed the ball into the box. Drogba attempted to control and shoot. The ball struck Dani Alves at close range. Chelsea demanded another penalty. Again, nothing was given. Guus Hiddink watched from the sidelines, shaking his head slowly. Time ticked forward. Barcelona, with 10 men, looked fragile. Chelsea created chance after chance. Then, in the 82nd minute, Nicolas Anelka dribbled toward the penalty area and was clipped from behind by Yaya Touré. Chelsea players raised their arms instantly. The referee signaled no foul. 3 massive penalty appeals. 3 denials. Stamford Bridge roared with outrage. But the clock kept moving. Chelsea were 8 minutes plus stoppage time away from the Champions League final. The crowd began chanting. Players began glancing at the scoreboard. Barcelona looked exhausted. Messi was tightly marked. Eto'o was isolated. Iniesta and Xavi struggled to find space. Chelsea dropped deeper, protecting their lead. Every clearance felt like a countdown. Every tackle felt like destiny. The fourth official raised the board. 3 minutes of added time. 3 minutes between Chelsea and redemption after Moscow heartbreak. Chelsea fans were already dreaming of Rome. And then, in the 93rd minute, Barcelona launched one final desperate attack. The ball fell to Lionel Messi outside the box. Messi looked up surrounded by blue shirts. He passed sideways to Andrés Iniesta, standing at the edge of the area. Iniesta took one touch. The stadium seemed to freeze in slow motion. He struck the ball with his right foot. The shot screamed through defenders. Petr Cech stretched, and the ball flew into the top corner. Silence crashed into Stamford Bridge like a storm collapsing. Iniesta sprinted toward the Barcelona fans, screaming in disbelief. Chelsea players fell to their knees. Barcelona bench exploded in chaos. And suddenly, everything changed. Chelsea players stood frozen as if time itself had betrayed them. Iniesta slid on his knees, screaming with a mixture of shock and relief as Barcelona substitutes stormed the pitch behind him. Pep Guardiola grabbed his head in disbelief because even he knew this was not tactical genius anymore. This was survival. Stamford Bridge, which had been vibrating with noise just seconds earlier, collapsed in a stunned silence broken only by Barcelona's celebrations echoing through the London rain. Chelsea players rushed toward the referee immediately. Ballack chased Tom Henning Ovribo, screaming, waving his arms, demanding explanations. Drogba shouted in rage, eyes wide with disbelief. John Terry stood near the center circle, staring blankly at the scoreboard. 1-1. Barcelona now led on away goals. The mathematics of football had just rewritten destiny. Chelsea needed one more goal in the remaining seconds, but emotionally they were shattered. Football can destroy hope faster than it builds it. The referee restarted the match. Chelsea threw every remaining ounce of energy forward. Long balls flew into the Barcelona box. Terry charged forward like a striker. Petr Cech remained near the halfway line. And then came the final whistle. The sound cut through Stamford Bridge like a knife through glass. Barcelona players collapsed in celebration. Chelsea players collapsed in heartbreak. But the story didn't end with defeat. The story exploded into chaos that football still debates today. Didier Drogba walked toward the referee, furious beyond control. Television cameras captured him shouting directly into the lens, yelling the now infamous words. It's AF asterisk 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 ING disgrace. The moment became immortal, not just because of the anger, but because millions of fans around the world agreed with him. Chelsea players surrounded Ovribo. Security staff rushed onto the pitch. Ballack chased the referee again, screaming for justice. Even normally composed, players lost emotional control. Guus Hiddink later described the atmosphere as boiling with injustice. Chelsea believed they had been robbed. Not beaten, not outplayed, robbed. And football history has never fully agreed on what really happened that night. When analysts later reviewed the match, they counted at least 4 major penalty appeals Chelsea believed were legitimate. The Maluda incident, the peak handball, the Dani Alves block on Drogba, the Yaya Touré challenge on Anelka. UEFA never officially declared refereeing mistakes, but they also never assigned Ovribo to another Champions League match of similar magnitude again. He later admitted the pressure after the match forced him into police protection due to death threats. That alone showed how deeply the match had emotionally scarred fans. But beyond controversy, the football story carried deeper layers. Because Barcelona didn't just survive Stamford Bridge. They completed one of the greatest seasons football has ever witnessed. 2 weeks after the Chelsea match, Barcelona faced Manchester United in the 2009 Champions League final in Rome. Barcelona dominated United with possession football that looked untouchable. Samuel Eto'o scored early in the 10th minute. Then Lionel Messi scored a historic header in the 70th minute despite being surrounded by taller defenders. Barcelona won 2-0. They completed the Continental treble, La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League. Guardiola's first season ended with immortality. That victory launched the greatest era in Barcelona's modern history. It established tiki-taka as football's most feared tactical philosophy. It elevated Messi from prodigy to global icon. It created a dynasty that influenced world football for over a decade. But every dynasty leaves victims behind. And Chelsea carried scars from that night longer than statistics could measure. Frank Lampard later admitted the match was one of the most painful experiences of his career. John Terry described it as emotional torture. Didier Drogba received a 6-match European suspension for confronting the referee. The Chelsea squad believed destiny had been stolen twice in 2 consecutive Champions League campaigns. Moscow 2008, Stamford Bridge 2009. 2 heartbreaks, 2 different kinds of cruelty. But football often rewards resilience. 3 years later, in 2012, Chelsea found themselves facing Barcelona again in the Champions League semifinals. And destiny finally shifted. Chelsea defeated Barcelona over two legs in what many fans saw as poetic justice. Fernando Torres' famous last-minute goal at Camp Nou sealed Barcelona's elimination. Chelsea advanced to the final. Then, in Munich, they defeated Bayern Munich to win their first ever Champions League trophy. Many Chelsea players from 2009 were still present. Lampard, Terry, Drogba, Cech. For them, Munich 2012 was not just victory. It was redemption. But the emotional mythology of Stamford Bridge 2009 never disappeared, because that match raised uncomfortable questions about football itself. Can the best team always win? Does destiny sometimes override fairness? Is controversy part of football's emotional power? Barcelona fans argue their team dominated European football during that era because of pure quality and tactical brilliance. Chelsea fans argue that one referee decision changed football history. Both arguments live side by side like two parallel realities. Statistically, Barcelona finished that semi-final with 72% possession in the second leg despite playing with 10 men for over 30 minutes. Chelsea attempted more shots on target. Chelsea defended deeper. Chelsea executed their strategy almost perfectly. But football is decided by moments, not perfection. And Iniesta's goal became one of the most dramatic strikes in Champions League history. The technique itself was flawless. Controlled first touch, perfect body positioning, strike through traffic, precision into the top corner. Even Chelsea fans admit it was technically unstoppable. Iniesta later said in interviews, "I didn't think, I just hit it." Sometimes history is created by instinct, but emotional football memory rarely forgives timing. Because if that goal had come 5 minutes earlier, Chelsea might have recovered. But in the final seconds, hope doesn't collapse, it shatters. The match also marked a symbolic shift in football philosophy. Barcelona represented control through possession. Chelsea represented control through physical structure and defensive resilience. The match became a clash between two football ideologies: art versus power, patience versus aggression, fluidity versus resistance. And football rarely offers neutral outcomes in ideological battles. For Guardiola, the match validated his belief system. For Hiddink, it became proof that tactical perfection doesn't guarantee survival. Even neutral fans still debate whether Stamford Bridge 2009 was injustice or simply football's cruel unpredictability. But perhaps the reason this match remains unforgettable is not the controversy. It is the emotional explosion. Football is loved because it reflects life's randomness. You can prepare perfectly. You can sacrifice everything. You can be 90 seconds away from glory. And then, one moment can erase everything. Chelsea experienced that truth in its rawest form. Barcelona experienced the opposite. They learned that belief must survive even when defeat feels inevitable. Iniesta later said that goal felt like the most important moment of his career, not because of trophies, but because it symbolized persistence. That night created villains and heroes, depending on which shirt fans wore. But time has softened rage into reflection. Chelsea supporters still remember the injustice. Barcelona supporters remember the miracle. Football historians remember the match as the night drama overshadowed tactics. Even commentators struggled to maintain neutrality during the chaos. Because Stamford Bridge 2009 was not just football. It was emotional theater broadcast to millions. The legacy of that match also influenced refereeing discussions across Europe. UEFA introduced increased focus on additional referees behind goals in later tournaments. Eventually, football moved toward VAR technology partly because of matches like this. Stamford Bridge 2009 became a reference point for why football needed technological assistance. Because human error in football can rewrite history permanently. But perhaps the most powerful lesson from that night lies deeper than controversy or tactics. It lies in football's brutal honesty about life itself. Sometimes you do everything right and still lose. Sometimes survival requires one last breath of belief when logic says surrender. Barcelona believed until the final second. Chelsea believed until the final second. But football only rewards one side. That is why we watch. Because football reminds us that hope is fragile. Victory is temporary. Pain is unforgettable. And moments are eternal. May 6th, 2009 will forever live as 90 minutes where football became mythology. Not because of perfect refereeing, not because of tactical purity, but because emotion exploded beyond control. Because one volley from Essien created belief. Because one red card created tension. Because 4 denied penalty appeals created rage. And because one strike from Iniesta created immortality. Some matches decide trophies. Some matches decide legacies. Chelsea versus Barcelona 2009 decided both. And even today, fans don't just remember the scoreline. They remember where they were when heartbreak and miracle collided. Football gave us pain. Football gave us controversy. Football gave us history. And sometimes, history hurts. If you felt the emotion of this story, if you love football moments that shape generations, make sure you subscribe and like the video, because the next story will dive into another night where football rewrote destiny in ways nobody expected.